Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. And welcome to my second Q&A response video. Before I start the video, I just want to thank you all for all of those who sent me in these questions for the past few months. I never expected this many. It's been a great turnout. And yeah, I just want to thank you all for all the questions you sent in. And I think it might be a little bit more than the first Q&A response video, but I don't know who the hell's counting. But anyway, thank you for all the questions you sent in, and it's time for me to answer them, so let's do it. Can I be in your series? I said no noobish questions. Idiot. Moving on.
What made you want to become a YouTube user?
Well, the story goes back to long ago. Like before I knew about YouTube, or yeah, back before I knew about YouTube. I first started watching Thomas read dubs and fanfics on Sodo Island forums, and they had me laughing all the way. Especially Captain Punjab's Thomas the Batchman engine. That was just hilarious. And I won't go into too much detail about it since I brought it up a lot in the first Q&A response video, but it just kicks ass. And then I found out about YouTube when I was in the end of my sixth form years. And I really just went on the site to watch videos about it. Yeah. And then I got into watching fan-made Thomas series on YouTube by the likes of Miss Olive and Blossom, Combined Harvester 1, Train Level 476, and Train Boy 7. And I enjoyed all of them. And so I decided to make my own YouTube channel. And so Dalek44 was brought onto the world. Well, my username was originally going to be Dalek2 something, but it wouldn't be accepted when I tried to type it in. During Thomas Sember, which season did you have fun reviewing the most? Well, with Thomas Sember, I enjoyed doing all the series. It was just a festive tribute to both the classic TV series and the Nostalgia Critic, when I thought that he was gone for good after seeing To Boldly Flee. So I pretty much enjoyed reviewing all the series of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, from series 1 to 7 and The Magic Railroad. But the series I've had the most fun reviewing was series 1 and 2, because of the narration by Ringo Starr, the kick-ass music by Michael Donald and Junior Campbell, and the stories they chose from the Railway series. I also enjoyed series 5 because of the dark storylines that they brought in compared to the past series, and the fact that they wrote their own stories compared to the past series. And I also enjoyed doing Thomas and the Magic Railroad, because I was very nitpicky with that, but not too nitpicky. I just pointed out the nitpicks that I had with it, such as the film being Americanized, not having enough Thomas the Tank Engine in it, but I also pointed out the good things about it and what I liked about it. So those 4 were the bits that I had the most fun reviewing.
What is your favourite TTTE episode?
Well, as I mentioned in my last Q&A video, I enjoy all of my TTT episodes, because I think they get better every time. As I mentioned, my favourite TTT special was Thomas Around the World in 80 Days, because that was the first time that I did a bigger project with Thomas the Tank Engine. I mean, yeah, I did do a big project with Second Co in Jungle, but this was the first big TTTE project I've done. And I really enjoyed doing that the most. I just had the most fun doing that particular episode. And my favourite TTT episode from the series is still the Quarantine episode, because it's based on one of my favourite Tugs episodes. And I also have a new favourite episode, which was Better Late Than Never, which you've recently seen, I suppose. I enjoyed doing that a lot too, because it was one of my favourite Series 2 episodes. And I wanted to try a formula where I'd do a lot of the Series 2 episodes for Series 3. And I think that's going very well so far. So those are my favourites at the moment.
What is your favourite Sec and Co video?
Well, with the Second Co videos, it would have to be the same response as the TTT episodes. I like every episode I do. I think they all just get better every time. Like, from the last Q&A video, my favourite Second Co episode is still Caravan, because it was based off of the Magic Roundabout episode Caravan, which I ended up memorising for years. And that may seem pretty sad, but it was just one of my favourite Magic Roundabout stories, and I really wanted to try it out with Second Co. So that's my favourite Second Co episode at the moment. And each episode just gets better and better. What is the scary face from Ghosts from? Ah, this is the first time I've been asked about that scary face from the TTTE episode Ghosts. Well, I basically did a Devious Diesel-shaped face on paper, and I decided to give him a Diesel-10-related face with a scar on his eye and a big diamond on his head for some reason. It was just something random I thought of, and I thought it would be really good for the Ghosts episode. Especially since the original Tugs episode of Ghosts had King Neptune in it. But I wanted to do something different from it, like do a made-up Diesel face. So, I don't really know what I was eating to come up with that, but it must have been something sugary. But yeah, that's where it came from. So yeah, that's where it came from. Just my imagination.
Do you hate any of the videos you've done?
Well, I don't necessarily hate any of the videos I've done, but I will say that looking at the very first videos I've done, I think they're not as good as the ones I do today. Because a lot of them didn't have a very good film quality, and they didn't have very good effects, like dragging pictures onto the other pictures. Like, you could tell that they were just dragged on from somewhere. And I sounded really shy and quiet back then. But from those videos I've learned not to be so quiet, and I've got a better computer which has a better version of Paint. So I've learned from those mistakes, and that's how I do my videos today. What are you planning for upcoming TTTE episodes? Spoilers.
He said it! He said it!
If you could change anything about any of the shows on your channel, what would it be?
Well, to be honest, I choose not to remake any of my own videos. I just don't really have the time to remake videos. I prefer to work on new projects. So I wouldn't choose to remake anything. And I wouldn't even change the characters' personalities either. I like to keep things the way I want them to be. So, yeah, I wouldn't really change anything. Do you have Molly? If so, then I think you should do an episode where she arrives on Sodor and James falls in love with her and has to decide between her and Emily. Well, in answer to your question, I do have a Molly. And this is a little bit of a spoiler that I will leak, but I am planning to have her be introduced in Series 3. I don't know when, and I don't know how. But me and my good friend KingFan701 are planning an episode where she gets introduced. And I won't give anything else away there, but she's going to be in the show, definitely. Ah, and here's a question from my good friend KingFan701. Let's hear it.
I've seen Darth Vader a few times in your series and shorts, but do you have any ideas of putting him in your TTTE series as a villain?
Well, I haven't really planned on putting him in the TTTE series or shorts as a villain. Though if I were to do that, I suppose it had to be a tribute to Captain Punjab, since he already did it in Thomas the Batchman engine. But I will still continue to put Vader in shorts and second co-episodes for a laugh. Because I just love that villain. Darth Vader's one of my favourite villains of all time. And I just love making Family Guy referenced clips of him. So, not sure about TTTE series as a villain, but definitely keep him on for the other series and shorts. So yeah.
Have you and Nemesis Hero 123 thought about having their email answering characters ask each other an email?
That's a very good question. Well, you may know I have sent in an email to Nemesis Hero 123 for his Frank's email, and it was about the face painting. So that was the first email that I sent him. And he hasn't really sent me anything from Frank yet, but he has sent me an email as himself. And I have sent him an email as Dalek44, but he hasn't really got round to doing that yet, and I can understand why. He's most probably busy with his outside life. So, yeah, it could happen, and I may ask him to write me an email from Frank, so yeah, it could happen, yeah. Which Thomas CGI character would you add to your series? Well, it would have to depend. I would have to watch some episodes of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends to see the CGI characters and to see what I think of them. If they're good enough to me, then I'll put them in my series. but if they're not, then no. Ah, here's a question from British Comrade 1993, aka my cousin. Now he wants to do videos for YouTube and he's been inspired by me. And I'm glad to have inspired you, mate, so let's hear your question.
When recording your videos, do you record all the voice acting first, or do you take all the photos and then edit them all in first?
That's a very good question. Well, I do it in the same way that other animated companies would do. I would record my voices first, and then do the photo and editing afterwards. I find it easier to record my voices before I actually do the editing and photo process. Though with some Thomas the Tank Engine episodes that are based off of existing Thomas episodes, then I sometimes do some of the stock footage first and then the voice recording, because if I base it off of an original Thomas episode, then I'll already know what the characters are going to do. And then if I add some new material to it, like a Family Guy flashback, I'll do that after the voice recording. So yeah, normally it would be voice recording first and then photo and edit afterwards. Where do you get your wooden trains? I normally purchase my wooden trains from the entertainer at Cabot Circus in town. I used to get them from the entertainer in the galleries in town. But since they moved to Cabot Circus, I've been getting them from there. Because their prices are really low, they do like 20% off or something. Yeah, I just get them from the entertainer in Cabot Circus. It's closest to where I live.
Is there any wooden Thomas items you don't have and really want to get?
Well, that depends. Because I don't really buy any wooden Thomas characters just for my pleasures anymore. I'll only buy wooden models for characters that I think would make a good addition to the cast list. So if I see a character on the TV series and I think they'll make a good addition to the cast list, then I'll go out and get them.
How many wooden Thomas engines or trains do you have in total?
Well, I've got more engines than I have rolling stock, and most of the engines I got are Thomas related. So in answer to your question, I'd say I have too many to count. Okay, so what's the next question?
If you have any tips and advice on making your videos, what would they be?
Well, if you want to be a very good video maker, you have to take your time and be patient with the photo stop animation process. I mean, that animation involves the characters moving frame by frame. Like, you make one move, then take a frame, then another move, and then take another frame. But if you want it to look really good, you have to take your time with it. So I'd say, take your time and enjoy what you do. What are shows that you are in? Now, if you're talking about Thomas series for YouTube, then I've been in quite a few over the years. I started off on Thomas the Model series by Combined Harvester 1 as Gordon, Duncan and Hamilton, and I'm also in Thomas's Magical Adventures by Rosie the Cutie 1995 as Spencer, and a surprise character which you will see later on in the series. I have a role as Oliver in Thomas mini-series by Crane Productions 27. I'm in TCT by Emily and Henry as James. I've been in The Adventures of Thomas the Really Useful Tank Engine by James Fan 143 as Gordon, and I was in Thomas the Badgerman series by 3D Kid Sartfars as James. And yeah, those are the Thomas series I'm in so far. I'm hoping to get into more series, but for the time being, those are the series that I'm in.
Can you do some Thomas and Friends / Hanna-Barbera parodies, or a Hanna-Barbera version of Jerry Anderson's Thunderbirds?
Well, I kind of already have done a Hanna-Barbera sort of thing with the sex shorts, like basing them off of Daffy and Muttley and their flying machines. But I suppose I could do like Thomas shorts based off of a Hanna-Barbera shorts. But if you're asking for parodies, I don't really choose to do parodies. I'm not as brave as Crane Productions 27 or other users. I choose not to do productions, it's just what I do. So. Have you realised that you and others are the only ones that do comedy series with wooden? I actually have noticed that. Because most YouTubers use the models for... I actually have realised that I'm one of the only users who uses Wooden Railway series for comedy series. Because a lot of the other YouTubers like Miss Oliver Blossom, Train Lover 476 and Train Boy 7 use their Batchman and Hornby models, whereas Train Lover 476 uses his Tommy and Take and Play ones. So that's a pretty good thing for me to be one of the few users who actually does use the wooden railway models. It's quite an achievement for me.
Can you do some Thomas music videos with female artists like Adele, Cheryl Cole, Keisha or Bonnie Tyler?
Like with the parodies, I don't choose to do music videos like the Hanna-Barbera parodies, I don't really choose to do music videos with songs that are owned by big singers. If it's a song that nobody owns the copyright to, like famous singers, then I will do it, like if I'm not going to get into trouble for it. But for songs by famous artists, then I try to stay away from that. I don't really want to get into trouble. What YouTube series do you find interesting? I find a lot of YouTube series interesting. Like I find all of the Thomas series interesting because I think it's a good way for the fans of Thomas to really take a hit at Hit Entertainment for ruining the show. But you can't really blame Hit Entertainment per se, it's mainly the writers, including Sharon Miller. And I also find it interesting to see what other YouTubers that aren't Thomas fans could come up with. Like the Lego Batman series, which is a hilarious take on the Batman and DC universe. Another YouTube series I also enjoy is Super Mario Logan shorts with all his Mario plush toys. Because I think it's funny to see all of the characters from the Mario games interact with each other like they live together in a house. I especially love how Chef Pee-Pee hates Bowser Jr. That is just freaking hilarious. I just find it interesting to see what all YouTubers will come up with. So yeah, it's pretty fun. Who are your friends on YouTube? I have many friends on YouTube. Over the years I've gained so many friends that it's countless, to be honest. Yeah, I have countless friends. Do you like my show, Fun Time with Thomas? And your favourite episode? Well, I haven't exactly seen your show, Fun Time with Thomas. But I will check it out to have a look at it and show my opinion, so yeah, I will have a look at it eventually.
What are your opinions on the World War II Thomas and Friends movie?
Well, when I heard about the World War II Thomas and Friends movie for the first time, I was thinking that might be a good step for the series. I mean, it might turn out to be a success, or it might be another sellout. But because I haven't seen it yet, obviously because it's not out, I can't really answer that question properly for you. But I'll have to watch it myself when it comes out and give my own opinions on it. So, in answer to your question, I'll have to watch it when it comes out to give you a proper answer. But I think it might be a good film. But for the time, we'll just have to wait and see. What is your top favourite episode in each Thomas series, 1 to 7? Well, I have a lot of favourite episodes from the Thomas series. Pretty much a majority of series 1, 2 and 5, for reasons that I explained in the first Q&A video. And for series 3, 4, 6 and 7, I like all the episodes as well. But for series 3, one of my best episodes from series 3 is Diesel Does It Again, because I thought it was really funny. And from series 4 I quite liked the Grandpa episodes, because I thought it was interesting to follow the story of an old engine from the narrow gauge railway. And with series 6 and 7 they were quite honestly hit and miss. Some stories were okay and... now what am I saying, all the stories were okay, but they didn't compare to series 5. But with series 6 I did like Scare the Engines, because it was another one of the scary episodes that goes on my top 10 scary episodes list. And for series 7 I liked the introduction of Emily and Fergus. Those are two of my favourite series 7 characters. So, does that answer your question properly? Yeah? Good.
Which are your top 5 favourite Thomas series today?
A question about my top 5 favourite Thomas series today. Well, for number 5 it's series 4, because I liked the introduction of the narrow gauge engines, and the only nitpick I have of it is the fact that it has no Christmas related episode or winter related episode. Series 3, because of its original ideas, and the episode Diesel Does It Again was enjoyable. Number 3, Series 1, because they introduced the main characters to us, and it brought on my favourite saga, which was the Troublesome Engine saga, and of course the Flying Kipper was one of the best episodes in the series so far. Number 2 is Series 2 because of the stories they chose for it, and the fact that they got darker compared to Series 1, like with the episode Ghost Train. And number 1 is Series 5 because of every single episode. And I won't go into too much detail about Series 5 because I've done it already, and Miss Oliver Blossom and other users have talked about Series 5 a lot, and I just can't add to that. So I don't really know what else I could say about Series 5. It just kicks ass. And it's always going to be my number 1. Who is your all-time favourite Thomas character, and why? Well, when I was a kid, my favourite was always Gordon the Big Engine. And I'm not really sure why, but I suppose it's because of his, pompous personality. I just had a thing for pompous characters back then. And these days I also like James the Red Engine because he's vain and splendid, and it's funny to see him looking like Rudolph in James Goes Buzz Buzz. Yeah. And I also like Diesel 10 because he's the most evil diesel on the island. And I have a thing for loving villains as a kid. I also like Rosie the Little Purple Engine because I think she's one of the cutest engines on Sodor. And as Miss Oliver Blossom mentioned, she was the only engine to express a love interest towards another engine, that being Thomas, which brought up a fan fiction by a lot of users, including myself. And she's another one of my favourite characters from 2004 onwards, or Series 10, as she was first introduced in. And me personally, I think she deserves more screen time in the show. She deserves more episodes to herself, because so far she's only had 3 episodes where she's the main star. There was Thomas and the Birthday Mail, Rosie's Funfair Special, and Splish Splash Splosh. All her other appearances were just one short cameo, or just 1 minute of speaking in each episode. So, to me, she really deserves more episodes to herself. So, those are my favourites, really, yeah. Which one of Thomas and Friends' characters that you like? Bertie, Boko, or Victor? Does all of the above count as an answer? Is there any story from seasons 1 to 5 of Thomas that you really didn't like, and which? Well, for me, I liked all the episodes from Thomas series 1 to 5. I can't really say anything against them except for the little goofs they have in them. But I don't really hold it against the creators and team for putting in those goofs, it's just common human error. But I do hold it against Hit Entertainment for taking out goofs that they put in when they restored the episodes. Like having the engine start off too quickly or too late. Or the obvious goof they put in the episode Cole. Now that, I can hold it against Hit Entertainment because there's no reason for putting it in there. And you'd think that with a great team, then they'd be able to look over those mistakes and get rid of them before they actually put them on DVD. But I don't really have an unfavourite episode. All the episodes from series 1 to 5 are just too good to nitpick. Have you seen last year's Thomas film, Blue Mountain Mystery? Yes I have. I watched it last year, and I really did enjoy it. Though, to be honest, after watching Day of the Diesels, I didn't think that Blue Mountain Mystery would be as good as Day of the Diesels. But then when I watched it, I was wrong. It actually turned out to be better than Day of the Diesels. Why? Because Sharon Miller, of all people, actually put references to the classic series in it. Like having a flashback of Percy in the trousers, a flashback of Henry in the tunnel, and a flashback of Thomas down the mine. Who'd have guessed that Sharon Miller would actually write something in that refers to the classic series? Who'd have guessed it? Though it was a good point for her, since it was her last film she'd been working on before she left as head writer. So, yeah, that's what I think of Blue Mountain Mystery.
What are your thoughts on King of the Railway?
Well, when I first saw King of the Railway, this was my reaction. Let's have a look at these things here and... Oh, Thomas and Friends King of the Railway. Well, the first 10 episodes of Series 17 were better than Sharon Miller's Three Strikes You're Out stuff, so... yeah, this might be okay. Let's have a look at it.
Amazing, marvelous, stupendous, colossal, tremendous, gigantic, astounding, unbelievable, spectacular, phenomenal! And it's good, too.
I mean, wow. Where the hell do I begin? firstly, when I heard about King of the Railway, I actually thought that it was going to be a good film. Like, having seen the trailer of it, I thought it might be enjoyable. But then when I actually watched it, I was actually amazed at how brilliant it was. And the fact that the new head writer actually made references to the classic series, like getting rid of Henry's special cold fin that Sharon Miller and Hit Entertainment brought back in the new series. At the moment, I see good things in the new head writers in the future. I see good potential in the series with him around. So what do I think of King of the Railway? Better than all the other Thomas and Friends movies and specials combined. If you don't believe me, check it out for yourself. Who is your favourite engine? Well, I have kind of mentioned this a few times in Q&A 1 and earlier. My favourite engine is James because of his vainness and he's funny sometimes, and I like Diesel 10 because he's the most evil diesel on the island, and I have a thing for liking villains. And I like Rosie the Purple Engine because of her cuteness and the fact that she deserves more screen time in the show. And if you don't believe me on this, you'll have to go back to my first Q&A and watch it for yourself. There's a bit more detail of it on that. What do you think of Series 17? An improvement from Sharon Miller's writing. I mean, in the first few episodes of Series 17 that I've seen, then none of them so far have had the 3 strikes you're outfit that Sharon Miller gave us. So far Series 17 is actually better than the rest of the series have been since Hit Entertainment took over. So I see good things in the future of the show. But what lies in store for us next, we'll have to wait and see.
Do you have any American or other international Thomas DVDs?
No, I don't have any American Thomas DVDs. The reason for this is because I have a Region 2 coded DVD player, and American DVD discs are coded Region 1, and Region 1 discs wouldn't work on my Region 2 player. So I just stick to UK Thomas DVDs, mostly because those are the narrations I grew up with. You know, I kind of prefer the UK versions to the American versions anyway. No offence to the American fans, but I grew up with the UK versions, being from the UK of course. So I just stick to British Thomas DVDs. Which Thomas characters do you dislike from Season 8 onwards, and why? Well, we never actually had any new characters in Series 8. It was just to focus on the 8 main engines, and the fact that they ruined Edward's personality. Now that's one thing I really do hate. But for onwards, I don't like Dennis the Diesel because he's a lazy little shit. And I also don't like Charlie. He's just an annoying character. I mean, he goes around telling jokes that aren't even funny. You know, I just don't find his jokes funny. I mean, every time I see him, I just fall asleep. And all the other characters from Series 8, like Molly and Rosie and all the others, like, they're okay. And I also like Millie from King of the Railway onwards, because it was a great move of Hit Entertainment to introduce a French engine, like they did with introducing Hank and then Hero. I think it's great that they were willing to introduce a French character. And I also like the fact that they had Tallulah with 3 R's and an H from Doctor Who voicing Millie. That was a pretty good move of Hit Entertainment. So, yeah, there's only 2 characters from Series 8 onwards I don't like.
In the 8th series of Thomas and Friends, was there anything about it that you did not like?
Everything except for Thomas Saves the Day. I know you live in the United Kingdom, but what is your opinion on Shining Time Station? Well, the first time I've seen some of the characters from Shining Time Station, of course, was from Thomas and the Magic Railroad, like Mr. Conductor, Billy, Stacey Jones, and all that jazz. And I've seen a couple of episodes on YouTube, mostly ones with Ringo Starr as the narrator and Mr. Conductor. And it's a very interesting American version for Thomas the Tank Engine to be on. I mean, I know that Britt Allcroft had to create the show because they don't allow any TV shows that are shorter than 20 minutes and all that. So it was a great move for Britt Allcroft to create an American show for Thomas to be in, to avoid getting into trouble with the TV companies. So I find Shining Time Station to be quite interesting. Even though I've seen very few episodes of it, I still think it's a very interesting show for Thomas to be on in the American series. Well, that is until Shining Time Station got cancelled. and I'm not much of a Shining Time Station fan, to be honest. But like I said, it's interesting.
What are your thoughts on the new Doctor for Doctor Who?
Well, the first time I ever saw Peter Capaldi was in the Doctor Who episode The Fires of Pompeii, where he played as Roman. And then I saw him again in an episode of Torchwood Children of Earth. Well, actually it was the full series of Torchwood Children of Earth. And I think it's a very interesting choice for the 12th Doctor. Because normally it would go from Old Doctor to Young Doctor, but this time he'll be going from young to old. So it'll be a very interesting step for the show. And it might make the Doctor more of a father figure to Clara rather than a friend. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting choice. Personally, I would have chosen someone younger, but that's just my opinion. He'll probably be a great Doctor anyway. Do you think the John Hurt Doctor is the Veryard, the other from the Cardinal Master Plan, Google it, or something completely original? Well, when I first saw John Hurt's Doctor and heard that he did something without choice in the name of peace and sanity, but not in the name of the Doctor, I always assumed that he might have been the Doctor that came in between the 8th Doctor and the 9th Doctor. My guess is that he must have been the Doctor who ended the Time War. Because the Doctor has talked about the Time War a number of times, like how he had to stop it and how he had no choice. So I'm thinking John Hurt's Doctor might be the one who actually ended the war. But until the 50th anniversary special comes out, we'll have to wait and see. Who is your favourite actor to portray the Doctor and favourite Doctor Who companion? My favourite actor to play the Doctor is David Tennant, because he's funny and witty and always saves the universe with a chuckle and smile at times. And other times it can be really dark, especially when he comes against the Daleks. And my favourite companion is Donna Noble, not just because she's played by Catherine Tate. You know, the woman who ended her show by killing off Lauren Cooper and then doing a Christmas Carol special with Nan. Yeah, I don't like her just because of that. I like Donna Noble because of her sense of humour and how witty she is. I think her character went well with David Tennant's Doctor. So for the time, those are my favourites. Which companion from the classic series do you find the most attractive? New series. Well, from the classic series, I quite like Sarah Jane Smith. I mean, like, back when she was younger. She was a great companion for the 4th Doctor to have. I mean, she worked really well with Tom Baker. And it was great that she came back in the new series with David Tennant, and then got her own show and had David Tennant in it, as well as Matt Smith. She's probably one of the most interesting companions from the classic series. And from the new series, I kind of like, I like Clara at the moment. I don't really know why, I just like her.
What was the scariest Doctor Who episode you ever watched?
The scariest Doctor Who episode I've ever seen, to me, is The Empty Child. Because I just find the gas mask zombies really, really scary. Even though in the episode the Doctor dances, when you find out it's just nanogenes. And yeah, that's kind of a spoiler for those who haven't actually seen the episode. Even when you find out what the gas mask zombies really are, it doesn't seem that scary afterwards. But it's still a scary episode. So, yeah, The Empty Child is the scariest episode I've ever watched so far. Who is your favourite character from Doctor Who? Well, not including the Doctor or the Daleks or the Cybermen, my favourite other character from Doctor Who is Captain Jack Harkness. I just find him a very enjoyable character. I mean, he likes a bit of both, men and women. He's very witty and quite handsome. And his actor is a very fun actor to be around. I mean, I'd like to be around that man anytime. I just really like Jack. And I thought it was great that he got his own spin-off in Torchwood. He's just one of my favourite characters. We all know what your favourite Dalek episode is, so who is your favourite Dalek? Why? And do you have a model of it? My favourite Dalek from Doctor Who is Dalek Sec from Army of Ghosts, Doomsday and Daleks in Manhattan. Because he's the leader of the cult of Skaro, and it was proven in Daleks in Manhattan that he was the cleverest Dalek ever. And yeah, I actually have got a model of him, not including the model I used for Second Co, but I got a model of him that actually looks like the Dalek from the episode. so yeah, Daleks, that's my favourite. Are you a fan of the Doctor Who Big Finish audio plays that Nicholas Briggs has produced? In all honesty, I haven't really listened to any of the Big Finish audio plays that Nick Briggs has done for Doctor Who. I've only heard of them, like the I, Davros stuff, and pretty much any of the other audios that have Davros in them. Those are the only ones I've heard of, but I never actually listened to them. I kind of prefer the TV series, to be honest. Which monster from the classic Doctor Who series would you like to see come back? Well, I haven't seen that many of the classic Doctor Who characters and monsters, to be honest, so I can't really comment much on that. But I would like to see the Master make a comeback, with John Sim as him again. John Sim is just a brilliant portray of the Master. I'd like to see him return one day. What is Stephen Moffat's worst script? Well, I don't really discriminate on Stephen Moffat's scripts. I'm not that critical for Doctor Who. But Mr. TARDIS is a bit more critical with Doctor Who than I am. So, yeah, I can't really comment on that. I don't discriminate on Doctor Who.
Which childhood shows would you bring back onto the television, and why?
That's a very good question. One show I'd like to bring back on TV is Sonic Sat AM, because I really would like to see that series have a happy ending after seeing the cliffhanger from Season 2. Of course, I would use all of Ben Hurst's ideas that he mentioned in the interview he has on the DVD extras. And when I heard that Ben Hurst passed away, I was quite devastated. I mean, I honestly had no idea that he passed away years later. I had no idea. So, if I were to bring back Sonic Sat AM, then I would definitely use all of Ben Hurst's ideas that he mentioned in the DVD extras, including the ones that Mountain Man 234 brought up in Forgotten Media. So, that's one I'd like to bring back. I would also bring back Sonic Underground, for the same reasons as Sat AM. I'd like to give that show a happy ending, because in that show, the three Hedgehogs were supposed to reunite with their mother and defeat Dr. Robotnik. But in the show they never gave us that ending, so I would definitely bring that one back. And I'd also really like to bring Tugs back to TV, because that was one of my favourite childhood shows. Yeah, I'd love to bring that back and put in some of David Mitten's ideas, like focusing a bit more on Upriver. I'd also bring back The Trapdoor, for obvious reasons I listed in my top 10 Halloween specials. It's just a hilarious show, and I'd try and find someone else to replace Willie Rushton since he's, well, dead. But still, that's a show I'd like to see come back because it was a great big part of my childhood. I'd also help Aardman make a new Wallace and Gromit show if I had the chance. Ever since I was a kid, I had the idea of Feathers McGraw from the Ron Trousers returning. He's without a doubt my favourite villain from the Wallace and Gromit franchise, and I'd love to see him return one day. I'd also bring back the Mr. Men show from Cartoon Network, for obvious reasons, because it's a funny show. And I'd also reintroduce some of the original Mr. Men and Little Miss from the books, like Little Miss Tiny and so on and so forth, yeah. I'd also like to bring back Dastardly and Muttley and their flying machines, as well as Wacky Races, because Dick Dastardly and Muttley were two of my favourite Hanna-Barbera characters, and it's been years since they've been on TV. In fact, the last time I saw them was in the Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera ride at Universal Studios, which is currently closed down. And if I could, I would work with Tom Ruger and the original Animaniacs crew to bring back Animaniacs, because that was by far one of the best shows that came out of my childhood. And watching it again today, I think that there's a lot more things that the show can make fun of that they didn't in the past. Like there's a lot of new politics and TV shows and music stars and whatever that they can make fun of today. So those are all the shows that I would bring back if I had my own TV studio.
Have you seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Of course I have. Who hasn't? Which CGI franchise do you prefer? Toy Story or Shrek? Honestly, I really like both franchises. I like the Toy Story franchise because I grew up with it. I mean, I was like 6 years old when the first movie came out, so you could say I grew up with all three. And I like the Shrek franchise for its humour. My favourite Shrek film at the moment is Shrek 2 because of the fairy godmother and Prince Charming as the villains. It's just so freaking hilarious. And I can't get enough of Puss in Boots. So, in answer to your question, I like both. Who is your favourite Sonic the Hedgehog character? Dr. Robotnik. As I mentioned before, I have a thing for loving villains the most because they have the most fun. And I honestly prefer Dr. Robotnik from all the TV series. I like the Robotnik from Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog because he's a fun comedic villain who's also a whiny bitch at times. And I like the Robotnik from Satian because of how dark he is and his cool design, and the fact that Jim Cummins gave him a kick-ass voice. So yeah, Robotnik's my favourite character from Sonic the Hedgehog.
Have you seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yes I have. I've seen the original 80s cartoon with Uncle Phil as the Shredder and loved it. In fact, I still love it. I've seen the new darker TV series with the Dark Shredder and it was okay. I also really enjoyed the Turtles Forever special where they just crossed over those two cartoons together. And I am kind of getting into the new series that's done by Nickelodeon. I also like the fact that they brought back Rob Paulson to do Donatello rather than Raphael this time. So yeah, I am quite the Ninja Turtles fan. I mostly love the whiny bitch Uncle Phil Shredder, as was proven in one of my Halloween videos I did a few years ago.
What's your favourite scenes from episodes 4, 5 and 6 of the original Star Wars trilogy?
Practically all of the lightsaber duels. Well, from episode 4 I always enjoyed the introduction scene with C-3PO, R2-D2 and Darth Vader. And I always used to think that R2 and C-3PO were the main characters of the film because they were the characters who showed up first in the film. And from episode 5 I loved the lightsaber duel between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. And I love how it ended with Darth Vader revealing that he was Luke's daddy. And from episode 6 I love the final duel between Luke and Vader and the death of the Emperor. Those have always been my favourite scenes for the original trilogy. Do you like cartoon? If you do, then answer me this. What is your most favourite? Well, with cartoons I mostly love the Cartoon Network stuff, from back when the channel was good, as opposed to what it is now, such as Dexter's Laboratory, Two Stupid Dogs, The Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Ed and Eddie, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Evil Con Carne, and many others that are too long to mention. I also really love Animaniacs, because I grew up with that show watching it on Cartoon Network, including the movie Wacko's Wish. I just love how crazy and over the top that cartoon is. But it's crazy and over the top in a good way. It's really enjoyable to watch it. I mean, to me it's like a 90s version of the Looney Tunes, because they basically took a bit of the humour from the Looney Tunes into that show, like breaking the fourth wall and having them be aware that it's all just entertainment. So those are my most favourite at the moment.
What is your favourite live-action and animated movies?
My favourite live-action movie at the moment is The Dark Knight, because of Heath Ledger as the Joker. Now you'll get more information on what I think of Heath Ledger's Joker in my top 10 scariest characters list. And for animated movies, I quite like Dougal and the Blue Cat, because that was the first Magic Roundabout movie I got introduced to. And I'm also a huge fan of the Animaniacs movie Wacko's Wish, because as I mentioned before, I love Animaniacs. So those are my favourite movies at the moment, yeah.
Who are your favourite and least favourite Mr. Men characters?
For Mr. Men characters, I like Mr. Grumpy, Mr. Bump, Mr. Tickle, Little Miss Sunshine, Little Miss Naughty, Little Miss Tiny, Little Miss Plump, also known as Little Miss Greedy, and many others. I especially like Mr. Stubborn in the new show, because he's just freaking hilarious. And the only Mr. Man I do dislike a bit is Mr. Scatterbrain, because it's just basically a sex-changed Miss Scatterbrain. And some of his jokes get pretty old kind of fast, so yeah, that's it. What do you think of the 2008 Mr. Men show? In all honesty, I think it's funny. And if you're gonna ask me which version, both versions. I like the English version for their choice of actors. I especially like it how Mr. Grumpy sounds kind of Irish. And I also love the American versions because of the American voices they chose. I think that both versions suit the characters really well. Plus I can't get enough of how hilarious Mr. Stubborn is. So, for the new Mr. Men show, I really do enjoy it. It's one of the funniest shows I've seen.
Which one you like more, a stouter critic or the angry video game nerd?
In all honesty, I've never really seen any of the Angry Video Game Nerd's reviews. The only times I've seen him were in the 1-year anniversary of ThatGuyWithGlasses.com, where all the critics and video game nerds come together and battle each other. That was the only time I ever saw the Angry Video Game Nerd. But I just love the Nostalgia Critic a bit more. Do you like Sooty? Yes, I do like Sooty. I used to watch the Sooty Show and Sooty & Co. when Matthew Corbett was the presenter. I just find that show funny. It's just too funny to stop watching, in my opinion. And I have seen the new series with Richard as the presenter. But to me, some episodes are funny and some episodes are just okay. And I'm not a huge fan of Richard. I do miss Matthew Corbett, but Matthew did make the right choice in making him the new presenter. And my favourite episode for the new series is when Matthew returned. It was just a welcome return. Are you a Power Rangers fan? If yes, what are your thoughts about the veteran Rangers making a comeback, i.e. Jason David Frank as Tommy? Well, I haven't actually heard that news yet, but I think it'll be a great move for Saban to bring back Tommy. I mean, it's been a while since we've seen him in Power Rangers. I think the last time we saw him was in Dino Thunder, and that was about it. So it'll be a nice move for Saban to bring back Tommy. But my only hope is that they actually bring back Lord Zed for like a one-off thing. But that's just me. Do you watch Top Gear? Yes, I do watch Top Gear. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do enjoy watching the car idiots do something stupid with cars. That's what I call them, car idiots. Because they're idiots, and they do stupid things with cars. Get it? So, yeah, I do watch Top Gear because it's entertaining to see what the car idiots will get up to next. Do you like Steptoe and Son? In all honesty, I've never watched Steptoe and Son, so I can't really answer that question for you. What is or are your favourite David Croft sitcoms? David who? No, seriously, I've never really heard of David Croft, so I can't answer that question. Do you like Pokemon or Digimon? Definitely Pokemon, because I grew up watching Pokemon, and I've never really been a huge fan of Digimon. In fact, to me, I always saw Digimon as a Pokemon rip-off, mostly because they both have Mon in the title. So, yeah, I love Pokemon. Yeah. Do you watch Chloe's Closet? What?
About Roald Dahl's The BFG, do you like the book or the movie better?
While I never really read the book when I was young, the first version of it I was introduced to as a kid was the movie, with David Jason as the BFG, of course. And I loved the movie. It's a very fun kids film, and quite dark at times. So, yeah, I prefer the movie version, in all honesty. Do you like Rugrats and All Grown Up? Well, I did used to watch Rugrats when I was younger. But when I got older, I kind of stopped watching it because I was more into the Cartoon Network stuff. And I have seen some episodes of All Grown Up, and I think it was a very interesting take for them to take the characters that we knew from our childhoods and see what they're like when they're in their teenage years. Which I think they should do on The Simpsons. But yeah, I did used to watch those shows and I did enjoy them. Do you honestly like Yu-Gi-Oh! From your TV shows? Well, I did used to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! A few times on Sky, but I don't really watch it as much anymore. I was more into Pokemon, to be honest, so I'm not a huge fan, but it's okay. Who's your favourite Despicable Me character? Well, I can't answer that question for you because I've never seen Despicable Me. In fact, when I saw the trailer for it, it didn't really appeal to me as much as it did others. So, no, not a huge Despicable Me fan, sorry. What do you think of Jim Henson's Fraggle Rock? Never watched Fraggle Rock. The only Jim Henson things I've seen were the Muppets and Sesame Street. And I prefer the Muppets, to be honest. That's just the Jim Henson show I grew up with. Yeah, so never really heard of Fraggle Rock. What's your favourite Mario game? Well, I like every Mario game I've got, which are Super Mario World, Super Mario 64, every single Mario Kart game, every single Mario Party game, Super Mario Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion, New Super Mario Bros., New Super Mario Bros. DS, New Super Mario Bros. 3D, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, New Super Mario Bros. U, and all the others, yeah. Yeah, I'm a huge Mario fan. I like Mario a lot for the video games, just like I like Sonic the Hedgehog more for the TV shows. So I got shitloads of Mario games. I'm a major fan.
What kind of music do you listen to?
Alternative, to be honest. I enjoy music from various artists and bands such as Space, Oasis, Elvis Costello, Paul Weller, U2, and many others. I've also been getting into soundtrack music from various movies and shows, like the Dark Knight movies, the Star Wars movies, Doctor Who, and many others. I love all kinds of music, to be honest. Well, not exactly all kinds, but yeah, I just listen to alternative things and soundtracks. Do you know what your favourite music video is? Well, I honestly don't have a favourite music video. I kind of prefer the songs rather than the music videos, to be honest. But I can tell you what one of my favourite songs is. One of my favourite songs at the moment is Stars by Mike Owen. I just love that song. So, yeah, not much of a music videos fan, but love the music.
Have you read Who Censored Roger Rabbit?
Sadly, I have not read Who Censored Roger Rabbit, but I have heard of it. And it does sound like a very interesting book, especially since the movie was based on the book. So, never really read it, but sounds interesting. Do you like My Little Pony Friendship is Magic? Well, I've only seen very few episodes of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and in my opinion, it's an okay film. I can see why some people like Moab like it, but I'm not a major My Little Pony fan. I was always in the Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles crowd as a kid. So, not a major fan of My Little Pony, but I do enjoy some episodes of the show, yeah.
Have you heard of Super Sentai?
If you're talking about the Japanese show that Power Rangers was based off of, yes, I have heard of it. I've never actually seen that many full episodes of it. Well, the only ones I have seen are some that were used for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but I've never really seen them in full. And they're quite different from the American versions, like having different sound effects, and the stories being different, even though I have no idea what the hell the characters are saying. So, yeah, I have heard of it and seen a few episodes, but I honestly prefer the American versions. Those are the ones I grew up with, of course. So, heard of them, but haven't seen a lot of them.
Do you like anime? If you do, what is your favorites?
My favourite anime at the moment is Pokemon, because that's the anime I grew up with. In fact, it was the first ever anime I ever watched as a kid. When I was a little boy, I would always watch an episode of Pokemon whenever it was on Sky 1, during the times when I wasn't watching Cartoon Network. I don't think I ever missed an episode of Pokemon. So, Pokemon is the only anime I really like. And I still like it to this day, but not a huge fan of the new shows. So, love the old versions, not so keen on the new versions.
Have you heard of Abby Yo-Yo?
Abby what? No, in all seriousness, I've never heard of that. Do you watch Danny Phantom? I've got to be honest with you, I have no idea who Danny Phantom is.
When did you first know about the world's fastest steam engine Mallard?
I first heard about Mallard, the fastest steam engine in the world, on a video cassette titled Steaming Back to Marrowbone, which was a documentary centering around Marrowbone Station and all the famous steam engines that visited, like Sir Nigel Gresley, Duchess of Hamilton, Flying Scotsman, and even Mallard. They showed Mallard at the very end of the video, and showing that the post office made a new stamp of her. That was the first time I've heard of her, but it was very brief, and I got the full history of her from the glorious days of the express steam train and classic trains. And she's always been one of my favourite steam engines, because of her design and how her record is unbroken to this day. So, yeah, that's what I like about it.
When Flying Scotsman visited America in 1969, what did you think of it? And what did you think of the locomotive's American appearance and the train it pulled across the United States?
Well, I never actually saw any footage of Flying Scotsman in America from the 1960s, but I have seen footage of her from when she went to Australia. In fact, I used to have a videotape of when Flying Scotsman visited Australia and worked with R761. I thought it was very interesting that she would visit different countries around the world. I find it very interesting that one of the most famous steam locomotives in the world would be allowed to go to several countries. And I have seen her American cowcatcher, so I think it's very interesting that she goes around the world. Well, used to anyway.
What is your opinion on the Brony community?
Well, I'm not really a member of the Brony community, but I think it's a very good club for My Little Pony fans who are male. But I'm not a major My Little Pony fan, so in my opinion, if you like it, that's fine. If you don't, that's okay too, yeah. Which one of the real steam engines from the National Railway Museum in York you want to meet first? I first went to the National Railway Museum in York many years ago when I was still a kid, and the first one I ever wanted to see was Mallard, because as I mentioned before, she's my favourite steam engine because she's the fastest in the world. And I went back a few times when I was little to see her, and then as you may know, I went to see her this year to see her and her 5 surviving sisters. So yeah, Mallard was the one I really, really wanted to see as a kid. And it's just fascinating to see her up close, just a brilliant design. And I love her blue coat. She's just an amazing loco to be around. What's your favourite food? Well, for cooked food I like steak and chips. I also like chicken, beef, and any other roast meat. And I'm a big fan of cake, especially if it's chocolate, or sponge cake with butter icing in the centre. And I'm very good at making sponge cakes.
What is your middle name?
I'll give you a hint. It starts with an L and ends with an E. Have you seen Battle for Dream Island? No. Do you take your Hornby out sometimes? No, I don't really take my Hornby out at any time. They're all stored away in their original boxes. I used to have a table with Hornby tracks that my dad built me for Christmas a few years ago. But when we redid my bedroom some time ago, we had to remove it. And all my Hornby models are kept safely away in storage for easy access. But I don't run them that much anymore because I don't have anything to run them on. Well, I've got the tracks, but it would take a while to set everything up. So I tend to just keep them safe. They may be worth quite a bit in the future. So yeah. Do you think you should have your own TARDIS like the one from Doctor Who? I would like to have my own TARDIS from Doctor Who, because I'd like to go back in time to any time period. I mean, I could go back in time to 1938 when Mallard broke the world speed record for steam and ride on the coach with them. It would just be amazing to have my own TARDIS, because you could go anywhere and everywhere in the universe. I mean, you could go anywhere you want. You'll just have to be careful you don't run into any Daleks or anything like that.
If you had 3 wishes, what would they be?
That's a very good question. Wish number 1, I'd have my own supply of Skittles, like a lifetime supply of Skittles. Wish number 2, I'd have a life-size Dalek Sec as a model for my house. And wish number 3, I'd have my own mansion with a swimming pool. That would be awesome. Who would win in a galactic-wide universal war between Cybermen, Imperial Stormtroopers, Xylons, and the Borg? That's a very good question. I personally think that the Cybermen would win in the battle, because they're ruthless, they'll do anything to achieve their goal, and if they end up killing a Stormtrooper, a Zygon, and a Borg, then they'll most probably just use them for spare parts, like basically upgrade them into Cybermen. So, yeah, to me, personally, I think the Cybermen would win the battle. So I've run out of questions to answer, and I want to thank you guys so much for sending me all those questions. I hope you enjoyed hearing the answers, and I'll see you around next time. Ta-ra, folks!